Mm. So I am now safely in Waycross at the place I stay. And now I'm ready to do this lecture video for you. This is for chapters 10 and 11, what we should be covering on Wednesday. So I don't feel bad that it's Tuesday and I'm making this. I'll have it up to you in time. Um, what I did is I just took both PowerPoints, put them together, and I'm just going to go straight through them. I'm not reading all of them. I'm recapping and focusing a little more on some, not so much on the other. I highly recommend you go through these at your leisure individually to take the time. In here, I will tell you something to talk about in your, I think it will be the January 28th assignment, which is in module 4, I believe. I would also like it if you have any questions about this to jot it down and we can talk about it in class on Monday because hopefully we'll finally have an in-person class again. This has been a crazy term, huh? All right. So without further ado, let's do that share thing. Kerbam slideshow. And there we go. All right. So like I said, I just started it up. I put them together. So chapter 10, this is about blood stain pattern analysis. We've already talked about a lot of this in class, so I'm just going to cover some basics. Yeah. And I do want to show you the lab that I set to go with this, sort of with this. Pretty much the important thing here is when you're doing a crime scene and there's some kind of blood, how it lands, what it lands on, how far it sprays, if it's little droplets, all of it matter. Because you can find out, like it says here, what direction it was originated in. So, like if you, and this comes from one of the labs that I posted, if you're sitting, if you, not you personally, but if you come into a crime scene and there's a person sitting there and there's like splat against the wall over there, you know it came this direction to splat over here. Um, that kind of thing. It can tell you where everything was. So there you go. It can also let you know how far somebody moved. So if somebody was, say, punched in the face and their nose was broken, you can follow the droplets to see the pattern they go. Um, how much blood tells you how much damage, that kind of thing. So that's all of this stuff. We also have surface texture and the shape, the size, location, all of it has to be considered because let's say you found blood droplets on glass. That's going to be right there. You're going to know exactly how much was dropped. But if you find a tiny bit of blood on, say, a hardwood floor, most of it might have been absorbed in the hardwood. That's why you have to take that into consideration, the texture, the surface texture. Um, all of it requires basically math to figure out. Rough surfaces like wood, like I was talking about, can result in irregularly shaped stains, serrated edges. You might not get an idea. A lot of the blood spatter, again, like I said, has to do with the direction and angle of impact. And so that's all this is covering, is letting you know, again, like I just said, math, and we actually have one right here. So if you learned trig at all, where it says sine A, that tells you, if you remember SOHCAHTOA, sine would be so that would be A opposite over hypotenuse. But for this, it's telling you the width of the blood stain divided by the length of the blood stain. So basically, you're just doing this triangle in order to figure it out. No, you're not going to have to do that on any of the tests for me. Spatter patterns. A lot of this, I swear, is going to be like Dexter. Um, it's going to let you know how something happened. So in the lab where you have the body there and blood against the wall, you're going to know it happened from being basically shot through the head and over there. If somebody is hit, that's going to show a different thing. If somebody is smacked from the back of the head, that's going to be a different. And so that's all this is. It's just talking about the way the blood spatters itself. You then, as the forensic person, will have to take a look and decide if it was low, medium, or high. But it's kind of hard because you can't really determine that. So your thing is how much is there? How far did it go? That's why we keep talking about the size and the shape and the location, that kind of thing. Convergence. Convergence is where things come together. And so the area of convergence is the point on a two-dimensional plane from where the drops in an impact pattern originated. This is, if you have ever watched one of those crime shows and you see them doing the piece of string, that's what they're doing with this. That way they can get an idea. I would have pictures, and I really thought about it, but then I thought that the pictures I found might be kind of disturbing, so I didn't. There you go. This is what I was just talking about, the string method. Gunshot spatter. That can be forward spatter from an exit wound and back spatter from an entrance wound. So that's going to basically just let you know how far it went. Not really going to worry too much about this. Cast off. Somebody takes a bat, hits somebody on the head more than once. That's going to cause that kind of thing. So that's what this one's talking about. Oxygenated blood spurting from the artery, brighter red color than the blood expelled from impact wounds. So a slight change in color might tip you off on this one. And if an artery is cut, it tends to be more of a spurt. And so that might show up as well. Void. I like the void pattern thing. That basically means something was in the way. So if you come upon a crime scene and there's just blood everywhere and there's like a little block where there's nothing, that means whatever was there was taken away. And that void can actually give you a lot of clues for a bunch of stuff. Contact and transfer patterns. If you've ever watched the shows where they find that there's a little something under the person's fingernail or a drop on the shirt, that's what this is talking about. Again, the name says it all, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on most of this. I already mentioned the drop trail patterns where, like, as somebody's walking along, they might be dropping it. If somebody was injured and they're walking along, it's dropping. Or if somebody stabbed somebody and they're walking still carrying the knife, it could be leaving the droplets. Yeah. Okay, for documenting, it's the same as with everything else. You start with a simple sketch so you don't miss anything, and then you document it all. You put the little cones down, you take pictures, all the different types, and measurements and whatnot. So two techniques used to document the blood stain patterns. We've got the grid and the perimeter ruler method. Both of these, something very similar was covered earlier in our text. I don't really have more to add to it. All right, now we're going to talk about drugs. So we have different types of drugs, and you may or may not think they have anything to do with forensic biotechnology. But they do, because one, most of them are illegal, so that does fall under the crime scene thing. Two, sometimes the crime scene you are investigating might be a drug bust. Three, sometimes drugs make people do crazy things. So we have an entire chapter on it, and most of this presentation is going to be about various drugs. Same as with the other part, I'm going to kind of skip along through a bunch of it. So first and foremost, I'm going to tell you that there is a psychological dependence and a physical dependence. Some drugs technically do not have a physical dependence, but do have a psychological dependence. Some are both. So the drug dependence basically depends on a lot. So degrees of intensity, that tends to be what kind of high the person got, the nature of the drug, like how it breaks things down, the route of administration, so like injection versus smoking versus snorting versus pills, the dose. I don't think I have to explain what the dose means. Frequency of administration. The more often you do it, the more your body gets used to it, the more your body craves it. And the individual's rate of metabolism. So one person might be able to, we will use alcohol for our drug of choice here. One person might be able to have a beer, well, we'll say 2 beers every day, and it doesn't seem to affect them. The other person might try to do the 2 beers a day and have a lot of health issues, and their body can't handle it, and then they start needing it. Your individual metabolism does come into account here. So you can't say, but I know somebody who's done XYZ for this amount of time and they don't have anything. You can't compare. You can't compare that way because each individual's metabolism breaks it down differently. Plus, if you want me to go biology teacher on you, in bio 1, 2, 3, I cover the genotype plus environment equals phenotype. Some people have a gene that can easily be flipped by a drug and will change their life forever. But if you don't have that gene, it's not going to affect you. So that's another one. Psychological dependence. This is literally the person just really wants it or feels they need it. I normally use marijuana as an example here because a lot of people will tell you how marijuana is not physically addictive. But there are people who get so dependent on it, they can't go to sleep without it. That is a psychological dependence. And it's still just as bad because they can't calm their brain in order to go to sleep. Um, Physical dependence. Note here, it tells you right away, marijuana, cocaine, common drugs of abuse, regular use does not lead to physical dependence. I just told you that it does psychological dependence. Physical dependence is where the particular drug has actually activated certain parts in your brain and your body to where it now needs it to function. I could tell you the different parts of the brain if you care. Uh, a lot of it has to do with the reward center. So sometimes when the drug is not there, they just don't feel anything's worth it. And every ounce of them just wants that back. And I was talking about alcohol a moment ago because alcohol is a drug. It is extremely dangerous when there is a physical dependency to just immediately quit. You can die from withdrawal, which is why most addicts do better if they actually go to a detox facility where they medically get the stuff out of their system and then they go to rehab in order to learn to deal with the psychological dependence. Uh, all right, types of drugs: narcotics, depressants, stimulants, and hallucinogens. Narcotics, we've all heard of these. Most of us, I would hesitate to say, when you hear about a narcotic drug, you're thinking hospital. And that's not wrong. These affect your blood pressure, your pulse rate, your breathing rate. These are highly, highly, highly addictive. And if you do not use them correctly, if you overdo it, they are very high in the overdosing because it can drop your blood pressure so low and your breathing rate so low that you just die because you just aren't breathing. Your blood's not flowing properly. And that's because of the area in the brain that they affect. Opiates is one of the most common of the narcotic drugs. Um, there you go. Hallucinogens. Most people, when you hear hallucinogen, you're just automatically going to think acid. This is the stuff that changes your normal thought process. It makes you see things differently. It affects your mood. I want you to think about what you think about hallucinogens for just a second. So if you think about hallucinating or consuming something that makes your brain see things differently, like you are not seeing reality. Your brain thought pattern is deciding something that is not real. That's a hallucinogen. I'm stressing this because marijuana is a hallucinogen. And I know a lot of people who seem to think it's a harmless drug, and it's not. It really is affecting your brain. It is legit a hallucinogen. Then I can also tell you with how much they've been tweaking it and genetically modifying it, the THC level, which is what gets you high, is so much higher. Back in the 70s, it was a soft drug because the THC level was somewhere, I want to say like 6 or 7%. And now it's somewhere in the 40s and 50s. It's huge. I would love for you to look up this. This is the bio person in me telling you. THC and CBD1 both are very bad for your cardiovascular system. It's why we have a lot of young adults who are having strokes and heart attacks. And a lot of people will, shall we say, toke up and then go, well, haven't you ever thought? And they really believe things that are not real because it is a hallucinogen. So there you go. That's all I have to say on that one. Other hallucinogens, we have LSD, PCP, the psilocybin. I can't figure out how to pronounce that, but that's the scary one right now to me because it's like a little fungus kind of thing. And you have people who are paying good money to get therapy with this, where they're just dumping this hallucinogen in people and putting them in uncomfortable things and saying this will take care of all your emotional whatevers way back when, and you'll feel so much better. But if you actually put in the research, you will find it's a very small subset of people that can benefit from this. Most of them should not touch it. And if you have even a relative, so you might have the genes in you for schizophrenia or bipolar, borderline personality, and there's a couple more I just can't think of right now. It tells you stay away from this. It's scary. Then we also have ecstasy, ecstasy is also known as a club drug. We'll talk more about club drugs in a moment. So we'll just skip on over that. So again, those are terrifying. Depressant. Depressant means it brings you down. It chills you out. This is supposed to be in order to help with anxiety, to help you sleep. Depressant, bring you down. Alcohol is a depressant. It's used constantly. The easy way to remember this is if you've ever seen somebody who's been drinking and then, at first like, ha, 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 and then they're like, oh my God, it's so bad. That's why alcohol is a depressant. It is the worst thing for somebody with depression to ever do because if somebody has depression, they're already all on the low. You add in a depressant, it brings them lower. You can get alcohol poisoning. You can be physically and mentally addicted to alcohol. And this is one of those things that is extremely dangerous to withdraw from on your own. I think it's what it's called, the DTs, because your body gets used to it and it desperately needs it. Benzodiazepine, diazepines, penes, whatever. These also are depressants. These are to help calm you down. And they work by enhancing the effect of that neurotransmitter, the GABA. You will see a lot of supplements that talk about this. Dude, please try more natural things. And I don't mean by using supplements. Try adjusting your diet and exercising before you start taking things to muck about with your brain, with your neurotransmitters. Please. All right. A lot of these, Valium, Xanax, those are two of the big name ones that a lot of people use. It's supposed to be okay for short-term use. You're not supposed to be on these for any length of time because they are highly, highly addictive. And you will start needing more and more and more. And the way drugs work is the more you take, it's like building a little bit up in your system. So then all of a sudden, one day, that tiny bit tips the edge and you OD. Antipsychotic and anti-anxiety drugs. We've got a few of these. Valium and Xanax are also listed in there. There's quite a few. For these, there are a lot of times a very valid reason for somebody to have these, but they should be limited. And yeah, huffing. If you've never heard about that, that is, I was trying to see if I had anything around here. Say you take a blanket or a towel or a bag and you put like Scotchgard or even gas and just, and so it's doing that. It's inhaling the stuff in order to make your brain fuzzy. It is terrifying to see people do this. There are some people who will get spray cans and just inhale straight from the spray can. And it makes them feel high because what it's doing is choking the oxygen and cutting the oxygen off from the brain. Um, there was there's a show called Intervention, and there was an episode of this one girl who was huffing the spray air, like for cleaning keyboards and stuff. And that's super dangerous because it can literally freeze your brain. Um, it'll start shutting everything off because your body desperately needs the oxygen. So please don't do this. Stimulants. Stimulants are the opposite of depressants. These are the things that speed you up. That's why it says uppers or speed. So these are going to increase your central nervous system. It's going to make you more bouncy, make you more alert. A lot of times it will make it where you're not hungry. You don't want to eat. That is, unless you truly have ADHD. There's a lot of people who try to fake ADHD so they can get the ADHD meds, which are basically uppers. And it's because if you truly have ADHD, your brain is wired in a different way. And so the stuff that normally jacks people up kind of chills you down. Check me out after I have my coffee. I calm down. Before the coffee, I'm bouncing off the walls. So if somebody says they have ADHD and then they talk about needing that cup of coffee to get moving and how it energizes them, they don't have ADHD. Just gonna throw that out there. One of the most dangerous things is when people mix the two. That's called a speedball, where you take an upper and a downer at the same time. It's like almost instant heart poof. So there you go. Not worried about all of those. We're going now to club drugs because I want to talk about GHP and Rohypnol. Those two are the big ones. Those are also known as the date rape drug because these are central nervous system depressants. And these will basically just shut the person down and they won't remember anything. And that's why it's known as the date rape drug. Is somebody will slip the GHB into somebody's drink, they drink it, they start to feel all kind of woo, and they're like, but I only had one drink. And then the next thing they remember is waking up and they have no idea what happened. And so that is a very important one to know about, especially with crime scenes. Ecstasy enhances self-awareness, decreases inhibitions. So basically everything feels good, hence the name ecstasy. But it actually affects a very specific pleasure spot in your brain. And you can burn that out. And so if you do too much ecstasy, my ex-husband had this, he did dirty X and burnt that spot out on his brain without medication. He has no happy. He killed it because of this drug. So, not good. Ketamine, or known as Special K. This is an animal tranquilizer, basically, and it makes people feel like, wow, but then also they don't see things right. Because again, it is totally mucking with your brain. I don't know why everybody wants to hurt their brains. All right, anabolic steroids. That's the thing that's going to mimic testosterone in men in order to make somebody bulk up more. And it tends to make them really cranky. Different locations have different laws for the different drugs. Some drugs are legal in some states where they are not in others. So whenever you're doing a crime thing, it's important to document each item, It's not your job to say if it's legal or illegal. You are there to just document what you find. Not really worried about all that stuff. All right, collection and preservation of the drug evidence. Be careful, like legit, be careful. This is one of those times where you have to be extremely careful on what you touch and how you touch it, how you package it. Because if you do not package it properly, not only are you losing your evidence, you might endanger people. And so, best thing is whatever container it's in, you leave it in there and then you put it into another one. We talked about like the little pill bottles and envelopes and bags. You have to use your best judgment for which one it is, but say that you find a little baggie with some white powder in it. You don't take that out of the baggie and put it into something else. You close up that baggie, you put that baggie in another baggie, and then you put that baggie like into the container with the snap-on lid. So it's very secure, that kind of thing. Often the original container in which the drug was seized will suffice. I think it's good to double bag basically, and then make sure to mark everything so everyone knows exactly what it is. Most of the time, they're going to have to be tested. And so when they test it, this will then verify what is really there. So you've got your basic screening test, non-specific. It's basically just, okay, we got an idea. So if you go into a place where it looks like everybody's been cooking meth, you've got all the equipment there and there's some white powder there. You're going to assume it's meth, but you don't know until it's been officially tested. All of those cop shows that you see where they just go, that's cocaine. No, you don't do that. You're not testing anything like that. What if it was anthrax? That person's dead now. So you don't do that. They have very specific tests. And so that's what I was going to cover. So right here, we have very specific tests. So we have the Marquis test. And if it is heroin, it will be purple. If it's other amphetamines, it will be orange brown. Then we have, do not ask me to say this test name. I say that and I was about to try. But you test this, if it's marijuana, it's going to show up violet blue. So you know it's not catnip or oregano. Then we have our Scott test. If it's cocaine, it will be cobalt blue. With the addition of the hydrochloric acid, it will turn pink. And if chloroform is present, the blue color reappears. Cocaine is one of those drugs that tends to be mixed with other things, and so it can kind of throw it off. Then we have this other test for barbiturates, and then the Van Erck test for LSD. Microcrystalline tests also used in order to study these things. It's a little more specific than the color test. Chromatography, I've mentioned that before in class. This one is a little more advanced, and I'm trying to get to, there we go, the gas chromatography. They use this in order to do a closer test. And then that one, spectrophotometry. I had to play with these things in one of my chemistry classes, and I could never get that name right. And so this one identifies the substance by exposing it to a specific type of electromagnetic radiation. It's pretty cool. So all of these are different ways that they can test for the different types of drug. And yeah, I'm just letting you read this on your own. We got all these. Mass spectrometer, that's what I used in the class. So it was fun. And this is how it worked. It's moving all the stuff together. It's putting in there and it gives you a little printout so then you can see what everything is. That is it. I know that was like all jumbled, but as discussed that one time we had class in person, it's kind of hard to go a little more in depth with these, but I did want to at least give you a face and a voice to the class instead of leaving it all to the textbook. I think the blood spatter is extremely important to understand, but I really think the drug part is more important, which is why I wanted to do this one and I focused more on drugs. Mainly because um, every single person is going to come across drugs at some point in their world. And not everyone's going to think it through. I don't think everybody who takes this class is going to go out and become a forensic scientist. It'd be cool, but I don't think so. I think most of you are not even going to get into being in the crime field at all, but some of you might. Everybody will come across drugs. And so that's why I wanted to cover that one. And weed is one of those things that a lot of people seem to think is not a big deal, but it really is. And that's why I wanted to make sure to take a moment and remind you that marijuana is an hallucinogen. It does affect your brain. It is not to just chill you out. And no, it does not help anxiety. A lot of people say, I only smoke weed to help with my anxiety. But in reality, physiologically, it's jacking all that up. Um, and I think that's important to know. So I will answer anything about drugs you want me to in class. We can have an entire drug talk day because I think it's one of the most important things we cover this term. Um, Make sure to do the labs that I posted and take your time. For this one, what do I want you to write? I had thought about asking you about some of those tests because I'm pretty sure those are on the quiz. Um, but I think I would rather, yeah, anything covered in the drug portion of this. Was any of it a surprise to you? Was it new? Did you do you have any questions? What do you think about it? That kind of thing. That's what I think I want for the lecture assignment or whatever I want to call it, dated January 28th. So yeah, that's what I want for that one. And I hope to see you guys on Monday. Peace.